Hello everyone and welcome back to lecture series on economic survey 2022-23. This is lecture number 6. In today's lecture we are going to cover two very important topics of economic survey. First is chapter number 10, which is based on services, and second is chapter number 11. In this chapter we are going to study external sector, which is also called as balance of payments. So before we understand chapter number 10 and 11 in detail, let us have a look at the story. You see, there is a nice family here. This is the home. The family has parents as usual, and there are 3 children in the family. Now, ideally what happens? The parents give equal love and care to all the members of the family, including the children. But in our story, the parents gave little extra love and little extra care to one of the child. So when parents give little extra love and care to the child, the capability and the qualities of the child, it became slightly better than the other children. Example. So the name of the first child in our story is A, the name of the second child is I, name of the third child is S. The parents gave slight extra care and love to child S. So child S developed more capabilities, more earning capacity. So now when all the 3 enter into job market, let us look at the earning of child A, this much, child I, this much, child S, this much. Which means child S is earning more than child A and I. Now, suppose COVID strikes the economy and the society. Because of COVID, what happened? The earning capacity of everybody came down. So the earning capacity of this child, from this much, it became only this much. Similarly, the earning capacity of this child also reduced. Let us see, like this. Similarly, the earning capacity of this child also got reduced. But if you look carefully in this analysis, we can clearly see that despite COVID, the earning capacity of this child S, even though it reduced, but it is good, it is significant. And since this child is stronger, over a period of time, this child will recover. But the recovery speed of this child and this child will not be very fast. So this child recovered over a period of time, and now child A and I, they are calling child S and saying that, hey, see, our income has reduced, can you help? So now this child is going to help child I and child A. What did I teach you? This is chapter number 10 of economic survey, which talks about the strength of Indian services. So in chapter number 10 of economic survey, the economic survey has argued that due to COVID, the service sector got impacted, but over a period of time, the recovery in the service sector is significant. In chapter 11 of the economic survey, the survey argues that service sector is so good in Indian economy that whenever there is problem in agriculture and industries, service sector helps us to manage that problem up to a great extent. This is the content of chapter 11 of economic survey. So this is services and this is external sector or balance of payments. So let us have a deeper understanding of chapter 10 first, followed by chapter 11. So guys, let us begin with chapter number 10, services, source of strength. And as usual, before we start the topic, let us have a look at the overall structure of the topic. So guys, this topic can be divided into 3 different parts. In part 1, we would first look at the basic meaning of service sector, and then we would look at the latest growth trend in the service sector. And we would also look at something called as high frequency indicators. Which are the high frequency indicators we are going to look at? First is service PMI, Purchasing Managers Index. Second is bank credit. Third is service trade. And fourth is foreign direct investment in services. The second part of the topic talks about service sector performance. So we are going to look at the performance of some selected sectors like tourism and hotel, real estate, IT and BPM and e-commerce. In the third part, we are going to look at something very interesting from Indian economy's perspective. It is called as digital financial services. In digital financial services, we would be particularly looking at 4 aspects. First is DigiLocker, second is Digital Bank Unit, DBU, third is neobank, it's a very new concept, and fourth is CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, or popularly it is also called as digital currency. But we would start our analysis from the meaning and the definition and the growth. So guys, I have taken this list of services from Economic Survey. Let us have a look at some important services in the Indian economy. For example, services related to manufacturing, services related to maintenance and repair, transport, travel, construction, insurance, financial services, intellectual property rights, and then telecom services, other business services, cultural, recreational, etc., etc. Right, these are some of the important services. Now, can we divide these services into important categories? Yes. So there are two important categories in which we can divide the services. First is called as contact-based services. What is so special about these services? So those who want to avail the service and the service provider, they have to come in physical contact with each other. So tourism, trade, hotel, entertainment, right? Now, there is another type of service called as non-contact based services. So for example, IT, communication, financial service, business service, etc. Now imagine that I'm the owner of a company and you are a chartered accountant. I need your help in managing the finances of my company. Can I do it over phone call? Of course, yes. Non-contact based services. Now during COVID, the contact based services got impacted very badly. Non-contact based services, they somewhat managed themselves and over a period of time they recovered. Contact-based services also recovered, but slowly. So guys, now let us have a look at the growth in the service sector. See, what did I tell you? That because of COVID, the contact-based services, they were impacted more. Non-contact-based services were impacted less. So now see, if you look at the year 2020-21, this is the COVID time. Because of COVID, the contact-based services, they got severely impacted and the rate of growth of service and their performance was almost negative, minus 7.8%. But over a period of time, the recovery started. But when the recovery started, there was a news related to Omicron, the next wave of COVID. Because of that, again, there was a dip in the performance of services. Now, but contact-based services had improved to such an extent that overall, there was a nice growth of 8.4%. So we see that there is an improvement in the overall performance of the service sector here in 2022-23 in the first quarter. But again, the global conditions because of Russia-Ukraine conflict, it became negative. Because of that, the service sector also got impacted. It was also impacted because all the countries of the world, almost all the countries were affected because of inflation. So global condition like inflation and Russia-Ukraine war, that affected the performance of service sector. So this is how there has been a downswing, then up, then down and up. Now, we are going to look at some high frequency indicators of service sector. What are high frequency indicators? I'll give you an example. Now guys, suppose you visit a doctor and you tell the doctor that you are not feeling well. What would a doctor check? Will the doctor immediately send you for X-ray and MRI? No. First, the doctor will check your temperature. The doctor will check your blood pressure, your oxygen level. These are the things that the doctor checks. These are called as the vital information. Because through these things, the doctor comes to know if there is something wrong in your body. Because if there is something wrong, it will be reflected mostly in temperature, oxygen level, blood pressure, or your heartbeat. These are the things. Similarly, when we have to come to know what is the performance of the service sector, there are some indicators which give us an idea of what is the health of the service sector. For example, let us look at those indicators. So the indicator called as service PMI, that this is like the heart rate of the service sector. So indicator like bank credit, which means how much money is coming in the service sector. Indicator called as service trade, is trade happening in service sector, export and import. If it is happening, that means everything is healthy. Similarly, next indicator is foreign direct investment in services, which means are the foreigners also investing in our services? If they are investing, that means the performance of service sector is decent. That is why I have compared the doctor with this case of service sector and high frequency indicators. So now guys, we are going to look at each of the high frequency indicators separately. So the first is called purchasing manager index. What do we do in this case? So imagine that I am the manager of a company which is providing services. So you send me a list of questions, which is asking me how the performance of my company has been over a period of 1 year. So what will you ask me? You will ask me that have I got new orders? Have I increased the output of my services? Am I receiving, payments in time? These are the things. Have I recruited any new people in my company? Because if I'm increasing my output, if I'm increasing my employment, if I'm getting my payments in time, that means the performance of my company is decent. So this is exactly the method which is used to calculate something called as service PMI, Purchasing Managers Index. We send questions to so many different managers of the companies related to services, and we ask them that how their performance has been related to employment, output, payment, etc. And then we provide them score. The score is usually ranging from 0 to 100. If the score that we provide based on the response that they give us, if the score that we provide is greater than 50, that means service sector is performing well. If the score is less than 50, that means there is a problem in the service sector. So let us see, guys. This is the score of 50. This line that you see is a score of 50. So now see, because of the lockdown and the first wave of COVID, so what happened? The PMI started to hover around 50, which means just border case. But in the second wave of COVID, it crashed down. The value of the PMI came, which is below 50, which means there is negative performance. Now, the service sector started to improve over a period of time, but because of fear of Omicron, it again crashed. And finally, it started to improve. And now we see that this is the 50 line, so it is going above 50 line. Why is it going above 50 line? Because contact-based services have recovered. But again, there is a problem. The problem is that the world suffered from inflation and Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because of that, again, PMI started to come down, which means the performance of service sector was impacted. But now, recently, we have started to improve again, right? So this is the cycle. Now let us have a look at the bank credit. Bank credit means what is the money or cash which is flowing in the service sector. So let us have a look at November 2021. So COVID impacted us in 2020 and 21. In 21, slight recovery started. So in 2021, the rate of growth of bank credit in the service sector was 3.3%. See, 3.3%. Now, if you look at November 2022, exactly after 1 year, the rate of growth of bank credit is 21.3%. So from 3.3%, it became 21.3%. So there is definitely an improvement. Now, why is the improvement coming here? Because of mostly good performance in the field of wholesale trade and retail trade, which are those areas of services where the performance has not been great in terms of bank credit, which means which are those areas where money is not going. So aviation and shipping industry, they have not seen a lot of cash coming because we know that Russia, Ukraine, inflation and global scenario has become volatile. So because of that, aviation and shipping industry got impacted. Other than that, overall performance in terms of money coming in service sector is good. Now guys, let us look at the service sector. So over a period of time, we have seen that export of our service sector has increased. Import has also increased. But our export has been greater than import. See, export is greater than import. So whenever export is greater than import, we earn a lot of foreign currency. And why has the export of Indian service sector increased over a period of time? Because of many reasons. But one of the main reasons is that the world started to suffer from inflation recently. Because of inflation in developed countries, the wages and salaries of workers increased. So whenever there is inflation, people ask for higher salary. That happened in Western countries. So when wages and salaries increase there, so many companies in the Western countries, they transferred their work to India. And our service sector got that benefit. So if you look at the contribution of Indian service sector in the global services, it was 3% in 2015. But if you look at 2021, the contribution of Indian service sector in the global services is 4%. So it has been increasing over a period of time. So inflation actually, in this context, inflation helped us to increase our export. Now guys, let us have a look at the foreign direct investment in service sector. See, in 2021, India's rank was ranked 7th in terms of receiving foreign direct investment. So we were the 7th best country in the world in terms of receiving FDI. Now, what are the different steps which has helped India to get more FDI? The first one is National Single Window Clearance. So what is FDI? FDI means when a foreigner sends cash as well as is interested in sending technology, good management practices to us, right? So whenever somebody becomes our FDI, they want ownership in Indian companies. So suppose Mr. Bill Gates wants ownership in Indian companies and we are making Mr. Bill Gates run from office to office. So this will be acting like a demotivation for the foreign investor. So Government of India has just started single window clearance. Whatever permissions are required by foreign investors, we are giving those permissions to them through one mobile app, through one portal, which makes their process very smooth. So that is the first step. Second step is, over a period of time, Indian economy and the Indian government has become more open. We are not very conservative in terms of accepting FDI. So for example, if you look at the field of telecom, 100% foreign direct investment is allowed. So tomorrow, if Mr. Bill Gates wants to open a telecom company in India, he can become 100% owner of that. He can do that. Similarly, in insurance sector, we have increased the foreign direct investment limit from 49 to 74%. So for example, guys, suppose Mr. Bill Gates wants to open an insurance company in India. He can be the owner of that company to the extent of 74%, and rest 26% he has to take some Indian partner. So this has also increased from 49 to 74. And recently the government of India has said that up to 20% foreign direct investment will be allowed in LIC. So 20% ownership of LIC can also be sold to foreigners. So this is also allowed. So we have become more liberal. Now, we are going to look at the performance of some of the specific service sectors in India. For example, let us start with tourism and hotel. So you see, I told you that tourism and hotel, they are contact-based services. So between January and September 2022, there was a good recovery in contact-based services like tourism and hotel. But after October, you see, there is global uncertainty. For example, Russia-Ukraine uncertainty. Because of that, the performance of hotel tourism, it has started to come down. What are the different steps that has been taken by Government of India to promote tourism and hotel? I'll tell you a simple story. Now imagine that you are a foreigner and you have heard a lot about India's medical tourism, that India offers allopathy treatment, homeopathy, Ayurveda, yoga, Unani, all these different types of medications. Now you want to come to India. So if you apply for visa, it might take a lot of time, but your case might be very serious. So the Government of India has taken a lot of steps to help medical tourism in India. So that's the first thing. In medical tourism, the first thing that a foreigner requires is visa. So the Government of India has started a scheme whereby we are giving Ayush visa to foreigners who want to come to India for treatment. Now suppose the foreigner comes to India for treatment, the foreigner does not know where to go. So the Government of India has started a program called Swadesh Darshan 2.0 by first taking 15 states on board, and Government of India is promoting the foreigners and the tourists to travel to these states and see what their requirements are and if it is being fulfilled in these states. So for example, if you go to Uttarakhand, if you go to UP, Banaras, if you go to northeast of India, there are Kerala, for example, you can avail a lot of yoga and wellness kind of services. So that is Swadesh Darshan. Government of India also realized that foreigners are facing one problem in India. So suppose you are a foreigner, you have to go for kidney transplant, God forbid. Now, if you look at the rates given by one hospital in India, suppose there is one hospital where kidney transplant would cost you 10 lakh rupees, in another hospital 20 lakh, in another hospital 30 lakh. For same treatment, different rates. So the Government of India has started a portal, website called as Heal in India portal, whereby some standard charges are mentioned for a particular treatment. And if the foreigner wants to come to India, they can go to this portal and they can check what is the price of a treatment and they can avail that service. So that is Heal in India. Now guys, suppose that a foreigner from London has come to India and the foreigner wants to, travel to our places which are good in spiritual development and wellness and yoga. For example, the foreigner from London wants to go to Gaya in Bihar or northeast of India. So the foreigner lands in Delhi airport, and from Delhi airport the foreigner wants to go to Gaya and wants to go to northeast. But in Gaya and northeast, suppose the airport is missing, there is no airport. So how will the foreigner go to these places, even though these places offer good spiritual experience to the foreigners? So the government of India has started a program called as a Regional Connectivity Scheme, UDAN. Under UDAN, the government of India is trying to connect the main centers of India like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bengal, Ahmedabad, Jaipur. These are the main centers of India. So we are trying to connect these main centers of India with the regional centers through air connectivity. So that will also promote health tourism in India. Now, other than that, guys, to promote hotel and tourism in India, so the government of India has started a digital platform called as Nidhi, whereby all those people who are providing accommodation services, they can register on this portal called Nidhi, and government of India can create a standard rules and regulations for them. And if government wants to give any benefit to the accommodation providers, like I am a hotel owner, I will register here. And if government of India wants to pass on any benefit to me, pass on any information to me, I can get that information and benefits over Nidhi. Similarly, so there is a portal called as Sathi website. So here, all the restaurants who provide food services, they are registered here so that things can be standardized. After COVID, for example, we need to maintain good hygiene, good quality of food, etc. So once you are registered on this portal, all the standards by government will be shared with the restaurants, as in what they are expected to do. Similarly, guys, there is a scheme called as Loan Guarantee Scheme for COVID affected tourism service sector, called as LGSCATSS. So for example, guys, imagine that I am a tour operator and I have got a license from Ministry of Tourism. And suppose I belong to Varanasi. Now, because of COVID, my business got impacted. Now I cannot, meet travelers and tourists because of COVID lockdown. So after lockdown, the government of India called me and said that if you are registered under Ministry of Tourism and if you are a tour operator, you can get up to 10 lakh rupees to restart your business. And if I am a tour operator registered under my state government, then I will get 1 lakh rupees to restart my business. So this is that scheme. Now let us look at the condition of real estate. You see, because of COVID, what happened is, one of the psychological changes in people which came is that we must have our own accommodation, right? So this is the impact of COVID. Second impact of COVID is that because of COVID, work from home became a new normal in India. There are many companies which are allowing work from home or a hybrid model of work. So what happened is there are many people who were in big places like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, etc. Now they have started to return to their hometown. And suppose that my hometown is in a small city or town of India, but I have been working in Delhi since very long. Now my company says I can work from home. So I will go in my hometown. When I return to my hometown, I will buy a new house, right, for my parents and for my family. So there are many such new demands from the first time home buyers or owners. And this has been seen in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And because of COVID also, there has been new demand of houses in the society because people feel that they need their own separate space. So because of that, there has been increase. And the government of India has also reduced the stamp duty and registration charges if you buy a new property. And if you register the property in the name of the female members of the house, the women in the house, then you have to pay a small amount of stamp duty and registration charge. There is one more scheme in India called as Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Credit Linked Subsidy Scheme. So guys, if I belong to economically weaker section or low income group of the society, then if I take loan to construct a house up to certain extent, if I take money, for example, suppose I take 2 lakh rupees. So I will get that 2 lakh rupees loan under the scheme called Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana at a very reduced rate of interest. Similarly, if I belong to middle income group, so I can also take loan up to certain extent at reduced rate of interest under this scheme. There is one more scheme called as Affordable Housing Fund. So if I belong to urban area and my annual income is less than 6 lakh rupees, then I can avail financial assistance under the scheme to buy a house, to construct a house. And if I belong to rural area or if I am a woman and if my annual income is less than 3 lakh rupees, then I can get financial assistance under the scheme to provide me affordable house. In this year's economic survey, they have given Global Real Estate Transparency Index. Now, what is this index? So see guys, so for example, if we look at the real estate market of India, we see that a lot of monetary transaction happens. a lot of construction happens. So do we get all these type of informations in public domain easily? If we get this information easily, then we can say that our real estate market is very transparent. But if we don't get this information easily, then it is not transparent. So this index measures how transparent is our real estate market. And how do they measure that? So they try to find out the performance of our real estate market, governance, regulation, transaction process, how money exchanges hands. And after getting all this information, they provide a score. That score will vary from 1 to 5. If they give a score of 1 to a country, that means their real estate market is very transparent and very good. If they give a score of 5, that means the real estate market is opaque. Now for India, the score in 2020 was 2.82, but the score has become 2.73 in 2022. So see, from 2.8 to 2.73, which means when your score is low in this case, that means you are doing better. So the transparency of our real estate market has actually improved. Now let us look at IT BPM sector. IT means information technology and BPM means business process management. Now what is BPM? So guys, suppose I have a company and I get a lot of phone calls, but I don't have sufficient number of staff to handle the phone call. So I will transfer my phone call service to some company called as BPO, for example, call centers. So that is called BPM. So when we transfer some of our own functions of a company to a third party who will take care of our job, that is BPM. So let us look at the performance of IT and BPM sector in India. So guys, see, because of COVID, most of the companies in India, they started to become digital. For example, most of the companies started to use cloud computing, they started to use a lot of internet services and all. Now, which means COVID acted like a positive disruption for the companies of India, because every company in India, they started to use more software, more digital services, etc. Now, if you look at the year 2021, the revenue and the export of our IT and BPM was greater than 2020, which means in 2021, our revenue and export increased. Now, if you look at which are those countries where we are exporting maximum amount of IT and BPM service, so USA. So most of our export is going to USA, followed by UK and then Europe. These are the three destinations where we export a lot. Now, if you look at which part of IT sector provides us more revenue, which part of IT sector gives more money to us. So for example, I told you IT BPM. So IT sector, information technology sector, provides us almost 51% of our total revenue. Second is BPM. BPM provides 19% of the revenue, and ER&D. ER&D means engineering, research and development. That provides us 16%. So IT maximum contribution, followed by BPM and then research and development. So this is the contribution of different parts of IT BPM sector. Now, why India was able to increase the revenue and export of IT and BPM? So remember, I told you one reason was inflation. Because of that, many services of foreign countries were outsourced to India. Second reason is we have seen over a period of time that many big companies like, for example, Microsoft, they have opened their research centers in India. Those research centers are called as global competency centers. So that has been a positive development. Plus, in India, the operation cost is low. The cost of offices, infrastructure, the cost of workers, labor force in India is low. So many companies came to India because of that. Third is, over a period of time, guys, we have observed that percentage of workers engaged in digital service has also increased. So availability of labor force is not a problem. And also we have seen number of students going for courses related to digital services have increased over a period of time. So when these companies come in India, IT companies, they easily get workers, trained workers. Who doesn't use e-commerce in India, right? So for example, let us look in 2022. So if you look at the growth in the e-commerce sector, so 70% of the growth in e-commerce sector in the year 2021-22, it happened in small cities and towns of India, which means the small cities and towns have started to use more e-commerce services. Maximum shopping that Indians do online is related to mobile and electronics, see 50%, 45 to 50%. And then we buy clothes, fashion, and then grocery 20 to 25% and others. In 2027, which means after a few years, for 4 years, we will observe it is expected that the contribution of fashion will increase, which means people will buy more clothes. Contribution of grocery will also increase, and contribution of mobile phones will come slightly down. This is the expectation. Now, why did the e-commerce sector of India perform well? The e-commerce sector performed well mostly because of COVID. It was a trigger. We had to sit at home and buy the things online. So that is the reason. Second is because a lot of people use smartphones in India. That is, digital mode of payment like UPI is there in India. And next, internet penetration is very good in India. Because of that also people use a lot of e-commerce services. Is the government of India also shopping online? So see guys, for example, government constructs a new office. For that, government wants to buy steel, because to construct office, what does government need? Steel. So where is the government buying the steel from? That is called government procurement. So when government buys something for its own use, that is government procurement. Where is the government buying the steel from? Government also procures different departments of the government of India. They procure their items through a portal called as Government E-Marketplace. See, GEM. Government E-Marketplace. Now, in the year 2021-22, the amount of money that the government invested to procure items was 1 lakh crore, which is huge. So online shopping done by the government of India is 1 lakh crore. And from where did the government shop? So the government bought the products sold by self-help groups, tribal communities, weavers, MSMEs and female. So out of the total purchasing that the government of India did online, 57% was purchased from MSMEs and 6% from females, which is very good, because which leads to more inclusive growth in the society. So guys, who doesn't use UPI or Paytm? These are called as digital financial services. Let us have a look at this index. This index is called Global FinTech Adoption Index. What does it show? It shows the extent to which a country uses financial technology, like for example, UPI, Paytm, etc. So what is the current value of the index for India? The value of index for India is currently 87%, whereas the global average is 64, which means on an average, Indians are using more financial technology than rest of the world. Now, how do we understand what are the different types of digital financial services that are being used in India currently? So basically, the economic survey talks about these four. So these are the four tools of digital financial services in India. The first is digital documents. Second is digital bank units, DBUs. Third is neobank. It's a new concept. And the fourth one is central bank digital currency, also popularly called as digital currency. So let us look at DigiLocker first. So guys, for example, if you have to access your mark sheet, driving license, if you have to access your Aadhaar card, PAN card, all these documents, you can store them safely in DigiLockers, and whenever you require them online, it is available. Now it is available through WhatsApp as well. So this is one of the types of fintech services available in India. The second is digital bank unit. Now imagine that this is HDFC Bank, and HDFC Bank wants to open a bank branch in a very remote or interior part of India. If they open a bank branch there, it will be very costly for them to maintain the infrastructure there. It will be so difficult to manage it as well. So what HDFC Bank can do is HDFC Bank can open these digital bank units like this, which is like a kiosk where some machines are there. So there is one staff of HDFC also available there. So the people in the area where this digital bank unit is located, if they need some loan, they can come here and they can self-process the loan. Or there will be one assistant also available from the bank side. There will be one staff to help the people get the loan. So Government of India is promoting it to promote financial inclusion. Then we have a concept of neobank. So what is a neobank, guys? See. So imagine this scenario that you want to take a bank loan because you want to buy a laptop. You have to go to a bank. First of all, you have to travel, waste your time. When you go to a bank, you have to stand in the queue. And when you stand in the queue and wait for 1 hour for your turn, the person in the bank tells you, go to counter number 7, go to counter number 8. By the time you reach counter number 8, lunchtime. Have we all experienced this? Of course, yes. Now, because of that, sometimes it becomes so tedious, wastage of time, etc. to do simple banking operations like taking a loan or putting your money in the bank. It becomes a very difficult process. So what has happened is, suppose there is one bank, HDFC Bank, And suppose this is a customer, suppose that's you, and you want to take a loan to buy laptop, but you don't want to travel to SDFC Bank. See what I will do. So what I will do is I will open a company. The name of my company will be Neobank. I will contact SDFC and say that, hey SDFC, will you become my partner? I am an online company. And then I will take the help of SDFC Bank. I will create a partnership and I will contact you. I will ask you to download my mobile app. And the mobile app will be called as Neobank mobile app. So now when you need loan, you will make all the entries in the mobile app. That mobile app belongs to me. When I get all your information, I'll pass on the information to SDFC Bank. They will release the loan and I will release you the loan. I will take some commission from you. Now, if you would have traveled to SDFC Bank, it would have taken more time, wastage of cash, traveling charges, etc. For bank also, if bank would have contacted you, bank would have to advertise, bank would have to send one staff, pay the salary to the staff. So for banks also it is costly. For you also it is costly. I am a mediator. I am a bridge between you and the bank, which means banks can also provide loan at slightly lower rate of interest to the customers because banks don't have to spend money in advertisement, maintaining infrastructure also. Because Neobank is giving all the services online. Similarly, guys, if you have some extra cash in your hand, you want to deposit the cash. So you can contact the Neobank. The Neobank will contact SDFC. And through me, your money will be deposited in SDFC. So for you, you don't know where your money is going, whether SDFC or SBI, because I have a partner. Customers don't know about it. But you are giving your money to me and I am giving the money to SDFC Bank. So I am acting like a mediator. What do I need to do all these things? Nothing. I just need to open a new company and create a mobile app. Customers will take my mobile app. So customers can take a loan from the Neobank. Customers can also deposit their cash. And where is the Neobank getting its cash? Where is the Neobank deriving all its functions from? A partner bank. So this concept is called Neobank. Now, Reserve Bank of India does not want to use the word bank for these kind of institutions because RBI says that this is not a bank, this is a mediator. So RBI does not regulate them, right? Now, but in general, they are called as neobank. Now, but RBI regulates the partner bank because every neobank needs a partner. That partner is regulated by RBI. So this concept is good because for the tech-savvy generation, it's so easy for them to get the loan, to deposit the cash, but it has got its own dangers also. Why? Because suppose you give your cash to them and they don't transfer your cash to the bank and they are not regulated, tomorrow they run away. What will happen? So we need to bring new regulations from them. That is the challenge. So neobank is a good concept. It might increase financial inclusion, but it's risky. And in a country where so much of population is vulnerable, we are not a very rich country. So these risky things need to be regulated by Reserve Bank of India. Currently, they are not. Now let us come to the concept called as central bank digital currency. What is CBDT? Also popularly called as digital currency. You see, if you look at the different forms of money, how money has evolved over a period of time. So for example, earlier, if I wanted to go for a haircut, I did not have any money. What did I do? I have wheat, rice, fruits and vegetable. I am a farmer. So I will give my fruits, vegetable, wheat and rice, and a barber will give me a haircut. Barter system. So earlier commodities were acting like money. Then came the metallic currency, gold coin, silver coin. So money changed form. And then came paper currency. After paper currency came plastic currency, for example, credit card, debit card. And after plastic currency, now this is the era of digital currency, where nothing is visible, right? So digital currency is pretty much like emotions. So they come and they go. So for example, there are more than 100 countries of the world which are currently experimenting with the idea of digital currency. 10 countries have already implemented it. So the first country to implement is the Bahamian sand dollar. So that's the first one. And one of the big countries to have experimented with digital currency is China in the year 2020. India started the concept of digital currency in 2022. November and December 2022, we launched it actually to experiment with it. But what is digital currency? So guys, suppose this is Reserve Bank of India in this picture. Reserve Bank of India issues regular currency like this. So for example, this is a paper currency issued by Reserve Bank of India. It's a legal tender, which means legally this is valid. If I give 100 rupees to somebody, they have to accept it. They can't say that, no, I don't want to accept this because this is illegal. This is legal tender, which means the government of India gives legal sanctity. Reserve Bank of India gives legal powers to it. So this is a legal tender. This has sovereign backing, which means government of India backs it. So this is issued by Reserve Bank of India. Similarly, the Reserve Bank of India will also issue digital currency in different denominations like 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 2000 rupees. Once this digital currency is issued by Reserve Bank of India, it will go in SBI Bank. And when you issue the digital currency, Reserve Bank of India, that becomes the liability of Reserve Bank of India. So this digital currency will reach SBI, for example. Now, suppose that that's you. You have a mobile app. In this mobile app, you tell SBI that you want to take a loan, but you don't want to take the loan in paper currency. You want to take the loan in digital currency. So State Bank of India will transfer that much of digital currency in your mobile app. So instead of giving you cash, they will give you digital money. Similarly, suppose you have 100 rupees cash in your hand. You want to convert it into digital currency. Go in SBI, give your 100 rupees and they will transfer 100 rupees digital currency in your wallet, in your mobile app. This is how the exchange of digital currency happens. And using that digital currency, you can make payments, you can buy things, right? You can pay your bills, right? So who issues digital currency? RBI. Is it legal in nature? Of course. Does Government of India back it? Yes. So just like paper currency, digital currency has different denominations. Have we introduced digital currency in India? Yes, in the month of November, we introduced it in the wholesale market called as wholesale CBDC, wholesale central bank digital currency. And there is one more digital currency called retail central bank digital currency, which we introduced in December. So there are two types of digital currency in India. So for example, if I am State Bank of India and I urgently need cash, I will contact my good friend HDFC and take cash from them. And tomorrow I make a promise to them that I will return their cash. This type of transaction between banks, take the cash, return the cash, bank to bank transaction, this is being done using wholesale CBDC. So digital currency is being used currently for transactions between banks. Similarly, guys, you must have heard of government securities or government bonds. So suppose I have government bonds, I want to sell it to somebody. So where will I sell it? In the second hand market, secondary market. So in the secondary market where the government bonds are being bought and sold, so digital currency is being used. Which digital currency? Wholesale CBDC. It is being used there as an experiment. Now, where is the retail central bank digital currency being used? So suppose I am a customer. I want to buy an automobile, a car. So the Government of India talks to the customer and the car seller, and between them the exchange of retail central bank digital currency is taking place in a limited way as an experiment to limited number of people. So these are the two ways in which central bank digital currency is being used. But what is the definition of central bank digital currency or digital money in India? So see, Reserve Bank of India has defined CBDC or central bank digital currency as legal tender issued by central bank in digital form. It's a legal tender issued by RBI. It is akin to sovereign paper currency but takes different form, which means it is just like this paper currency, only its form is different. It is digital in nature. Now, what are the different features of central bank digital currency? See, these are the features which Reserve Bank of India talks about. So we are going to talk about it. So let's see. The first feature is that sovereign currency issued by central bank. So has it got the backing of the Government of India? Yes. That is why it is called sovereign. Now, it is the liability of central bank because central bank doesn't own it. It is a liability. Now, similarly, it is accepted as a medium of payment. Legal tender. So if I offer a digital currency, nobody can say that it is illegal. So it has got a legal backing. Freely convertible against cash. So if I have 100 rupees, I give it to a bank, I can get digital currency for this 100 rupees. So that is also possible. Holders need not have a bank account. So for example, if I go to State Bank of India, give this 100 rupees and take digital cash from them, digital currency, I don't need to open a bank account with SBI. That is also good. And then it lowers the cost of issuance of money and transaction. When Reserve Bank of India prints this, there is a cost involved of this paper, ink, printing press. Then there is a cost involved in transportation. All these costs can be saved. We can save a lot of cash, crores of rupees through digital currency. So that is also one of the features. So guys, this is where we conclude chapter number 10, services. Now let us move to chapter number 11, which is external sector. Before we look into the technicalities of external sector, let us have a look at the story. Through this story, we would come to know what actually happened across the world and in India, and then we can look into the details. You see, we all know that when global financial crisis happened in 2007 and 8, to solve the problem of the crisis across the world, different countries, they reduced their interest rate. India also had reduced the interest rate. When you reduce the interest rate, two things happen in the economy. The producers, they will take more loan from the banks and they will invest the money and they will produce new mobile phone, new laptop, new dress, etc., etc. Similarly, the consumers also take more loan from the bank and they start to purchase more items. So when the interest rate is reduced or lowered by the central banks, so the investment level in the economy goes up because producers produce more, so supply of goods and service increases and the consumers start to demand more goods and services. And this slowly leads to the revival of the economy. And actually this happened and there was economic revival after global financial crisis. By 2010, the global growth reached 4.5%. Now when COVID crisis happened across the world, we thought that we will follow the same policy. So all the central banks of the world after COVID, they started to reduce the interest rate. When the interest rate was reduced, this continued. And in the first half of 2022, since the interest rate was low across the world, so the producers took more loan, they produced more. And the consumers also took more cash and they were demanding more items. In this process, India was also able to export more items to rest of the world. Right? Because there was pent-up demand. Because of COVID, we had suppressed our demand. That is called pent-up demand. And once the COVID lockdown got over and the fear of Omicron was gone, the interest rate was also reduced. So production started and demand also started in the economy. But if the story would have ended there, the world would have recovered just like we had recovered after financial crisis. But the story did not end there. See what happened after this? Immediately, after the first half of 2022, we observe that there was a problem of inflation across the world. Because of the problem of inflation, different central banks across the world, they started to increase the interest rate. When you increase the interest rate, loan becomes costly. So consumers started to demand less loan and the producers started to reduce their investment, which means slowdown started. Exactly at that time, we observed that there is a Russia and Ukraine conflict also which happened across the world. So international scenario became very uncertain. China started to suffer from another round of COVID and there was lockdown in China. Because of all these things, the supply of raw material inputs like semiconductor, etc., it got disrupted. And we see that after reducing the interest rate, a phase started where all the central banks of the world started to increase the interest rate to control inflation. And these problems also came up, which means that what happened after COVID is different from what happened after global financial crisis. So after COVID, we got shock after shocks. Because of these two things, the world has not fully recovered and there is a slowdown. Now, we see the slowdown also on the growth projection of the world. See, IMF has projected that in 2021, the rate of growth across the world, the global rate of growth is 6%. In 2022, as per IMF projections, it has been revised down, it's 3.2%. And for 2023, it's 2.7%, precisely because of this reason. So in this topic, we are going to study the details of what happened in this phase, the first half of 2022, what happened here, and what happened overall in 2022 compared to 2021. So now guys, let me show you something which has been nicely given in this year's economic survey. This concept is called as trade openness. Trade openness shows how open we are as a country in terms of trade. There are two components of trade, export and import. So how open we are in exporting things and how open we are in importing things. So trade openness is equal to export plus import by GDP. If you look at the world average, the trade openness ratio is 50 to 60% since 2003. It has remained in this range. But for India, the trade openness in 1980s was 12 to 15%, which means we were conservative. In 1990s, 16 to 25, we started to open up. In 2025 to 50%, 2021 46%, and currently first half of 2022 when interest rate was low and we were exporting more, importing more, it reached 50%. So this also reflects that yes, trade openness has increased. In this year's economic survey, this table number 11.1, it gives some kind of performance indicator of India's export and import. Just let's have a quick overview of this. So see, let's talk about export performance of India. See, so what is the share of India in the export of goods across the world? What is the meaning of merchandise? Merchandise means goods. So India export goods, for example, medicines, electronic items, etc. So gems and jewelry. So what is the share of India in the global export? In 2019, it was 1.7, 2020, 1.6%, 2021, 1.8%. So out of the total world export of goods, our share is 1.8%. Now, in terms of services, what is the contribution of India in terms of global export of services? It has been increasing. So 3.5 to 4%, and it has remained in 4% in 2021. Now, if we add goods and services, what is the contribution of India in total export of goods and services across the world? So from 2.1%, we have become 2.2%. It has also improved. Now, in terms of imports, so what is the contribution of India in the world import of goods? It's 2.5%, so it has increased. Similarly, contribution of India in terms of import of services, it has also increased 3.5%. In terms of imports of both goods and services, contribution of India has increased, which means we are importing more now. Now, if you look at the rank of India, they haven't given the rank for 2021, but they have compared the rank of 2019 and 20. The rank of India in terms of exports of merchandise. Merchandise means goods. So earlier it ranked 18, now ranked 21. It has come down. Merchandise import, our rank has, it was 10th, now it is 14th again. It could have been better, but it has deteriorated. In terms of service exports, our rank was 8, now it is 7, which is better. Our rank has improved. In terms of service import, our rank is same. So just a quick overview to know how things are. So now guys, let us try to understand what is the meaning of balance of payments. See, I have taken, for example, two countries. This is USA and this is India. India exports goods, for example, medicines, services like software services. And India also makes investment in other countries. Like, for example, Tata's have made investment in automobile in other countries. Infosys has, different IT parks in other countries. So India exports goods, services, and India also makes investment in other countries. When we do all these things, India earns income. Similarly, USA also gives us goods, services, and makes investment in India. This is called our import. So suppose we take a piece of paper, and on this piece of paper, whenever we export something, we earn income, that is mentioned here. Whenever we import something, we make a payment, that is mentioned on this piece of paper. This piece of paper is called balance of payments. So basically, balance of payments is a record of all the transactions that happens between India and rest of the world during trade. Now, when we export goods and services, we get income. And when we import goods and services, we make payment. So in the balance of payment, we divide it into two parts. The first part is called current account. Second part is capital account. Whenever we export goods and services or we import goods and services, the monetary value of that is mentioned in the current account. Whenever India makes investment in other countries or other countries make investment in India, the monetary value of that is mentioned in the capital account. So balance of payment has two accounts. Let us look into the details of balance of payment. See, balance of payment can be divided into two accounts: current account, capital account. And as I told you that in current account, we will talk about two things. The first is related to goods, export and import, and second is related to services, export and import. So let us look into the details of balance of payments. Let us see. So in terms of merchandise, let us see what India exports and what India imports. So guys, in terms of exports, we can divide the export of India into two categories. First is POL, petrol, oil and lubricant. Second is non-POL, which means everything other than petrol, oil and lubricant. For example, India exports the refined form of petrol and diesel. Similarly, that is called POL. India exports textile, electronics, chemicals, automobile. These are our non-POL items. So the share of POL in our total export is 21.1% and the share of non-POL is 78.9%. Now, when the COVID lockdown got removed across the world, so the pent-up demand, the demand which the people had suppressed for 2 years, that got exploded. And there was a lot of demand of goods across the world. India also took advantage of it and our non-POL export increased. Similarly, guys, there was a point of time after the COVID lockdown got over when the oil prices in the world increased. And India is exporting the refined form of petrol and diesel. So India was able to earn a lot of foreign currency. So our export income increased. Similarly, when the COVID lockdown got over, the suppressed demands of Indians, that also came out and Indians also started to demand a lot of items. So what are we importing? We are importing crude oil. See, we don't import refined oil. We import crude oil. And second, we import gold and silver. And other than crude oil and gold and silver, what do we import? We import non-POL, means non-gold, non-silver. So for example, we also import electronics items. We also import a lot of machines. So those are our imports. So our imports also increased. Interestingly, the increase in import in India is greater than the increase in export, which means we are importing more. So we are making more payments and our export is increasing, but increase in export is less. Through export, we earn income. Through import, we pay. So we are paying more, we are earning less. Does it reflect a healthy transaction for India? No, because we are paying more, which means that there is a deficit in terms of merchandise trade. Merchandise means goods. So in terms of export and import of goods, we are importing more, exporting less. This is called as merchandise trade deficit. Now let us see what India is doing in terms of non-merchandise. Now under non-merchandise, which means invisible, we have three categories of items. The first is services, the second is transfers, and third is income. Now there are some services. After the COVID, there are some services like IT, media, banking, insurance, healthcare services, research and development. Its export increased. So we have been able to increase the export and earn a lot of foreign currency. There are some services whose import increases in India. For example, we imported transport, travel and business services. But one good thing about services is, which I have taught you in chapter 10, that the export of services out of India is more than our import. It's a healthy sign. So in terms of services, our net income increased because our export is greater than import. Now, what is the meaning of transfer? So see guys, for example, India as a country receives a lot of gifts, donations. We also receive a lot of remittance. Remittance means when Indians go outside India, they send income to India, they send money to India. So that is called remittance. All these things are called as transfers. So there has been net increase in transfers, which means the money that foreigners are sending from India to other countries is less and the money that Indians are sending to India is more. So we are getting more gift, more donation and more remittances. So our transfers have increased. Now let us look at income. Now see guys, suppose that you go to US and you buy a house there and you put it on rent. What will you get? Rent money. Similarly, a foreigner comes to India, buys a house and put it on rent. They will get rent income. What is the ideal scenario? That more Indians should go out and buy a house and put it on rent. So we will get more income. But unfortunately in India, this category called income, which includes rent, profit, interest, that has reduced, which means the money that foreigners are earning in India is more and the money that Indians are getting through rent, interest and profit is less. So this category has reduced. But overall, if you look at this category called invisible, if you add number 1, 2 and 3, services, transfer and income, the first two have increased in India in India's favor. The third one is negative, but the first two are so positive that overall we have a surplus of invisible. So see, we have invisible surplus. So in terms of merchandise, we have deficit. In terms of invisibles, we have surplus. But the trade deficit of merchandise is so high that the surplus in services, surplus in invisible was not able to compensate for this. Which means if you combine the deficit in merchandise and surplus in invisible, if you combine them, this one is so big that the surplus here could not fully compensate. So total, we have current account deficit, which means if you combine both of them, it is called current account. So in the current account, currently the deficit has increased to 4.4%. In the year 2021, our current account deficit was 1.3%. Currently, it is 4.4%. Let us look slightly deeper into our current account first. Let us look at the export and import scenario of India. So if you look carefully, which are the countries which are our top export destinations? So USA, UAE and Netherlands. These are the three countries which are our top export destinations currently. Initially in place of Netherlands, there was China, but we are diversifying. We are exporting more to Netherlands now. Now, in terms of our diversification of export, because we don't want to depend on only one country, we want to expand our market. So if you look at South Africa, Brazil and Arabia, these are our expanding export destinations. So their share in our total export in 2018-19 was 1.2% for Africa. It has become 2%. It has increased. Brazil, our share of export in Brazil was 1.2%. Now it's 2.5%. Now, out of our total export, the share of Arabia was 1.7%, currently it's 2.3%, which means we are exporting more and more to countries like Africa, Brazil and Arabia. So our export is becoming more diversified. Similarly, if we look at our import, so the countries from which we import a lot are China, UAE, USA, Russia and Arabia. So out of total imports of India, 40% comes from these countries. But is it changing over a period of time? Of course, yes. See, out of our total import, the contribution of China in 2021 was 15.5%. Currently, it's 13.8%. So contribution of China in our import is coming down as per economic survey between 2021 and 22. Now, in terms of US, but we should not be too happy about it. Why? Because even China was undergoing a slowdown. Real picture will emerge in 23, 24 and 25. If you look at USA, its contribution in our import was 7.2% in 2021. Currently, in 2022, it's 6.9%. So it has also come down, which shows that our dependence on these countries for import is also slightly coming down. It is called diversification. Now, if you look at remittance, economic survey says that India is the highest recipient of remittance in the world. So out of all the countries in the world who get remittance, India is at number 1 position. And has there been a change in the nature of remittance that we get? Yes. Earlier, when our people were going abroad, they were mostly going to Gulf countries, Arabia, Oman, Qatar, right? These are the countries our citizens were going for work, and they were mostly getting engaged into low-skilled employment. But over a period of time, it has seen a shift. Now our people are going to Arabia, Qatar, Oman, etc. But Indians are also going to developed countries and high income countries where Indians are taking up high skilled jobs as well. For example, Indians are going to US, UK, East Asia like Singapore, Japan, New Zealand, Australia. So there has been a diversification. According to economic survey says that if we examine the current account deficit of some major countries of the world, we will see that India's current account deficit is not that worrisome. See, things become worrisome when your performance is not similar to others' performance, if you are odd one out. But economic survey says that if you look at India's current account deficit, it is definitely bad, but it is not as bad as we think that it is, which means it is in the manageable range. If you look at the world, this is the picture that emerges. So guys, now let us have a look at capital account. In capital account, we will discuss 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 components. The first component of the capital account is called as foreign investment. So sometimes Indian companies make investment in other countries. So that is called foreign investment by India outside India. Similarly, foreigners also make investment in India. That is also called foreign investment. But what is the ideal scenario? We want more foreigners to bring more resources to India. But what has happened because of COVID? The foreign investment, which are broadly of two categories, foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment, both have reduced in India because of global uncertainties. Now, second component is loans. So guys, we took a lot of loan in last 2-3 years, and now is the time to repay the loan, which means money is moving out of India. So that is why we see it is coming down. Through loan earlier money came, now we are repaying. The third component is called banking capital. So for example, NRIs deposit cash in India. That is a part of banking capital. Similarly, our banks also have assets, financial assets across the world. That is their banking capital. So in terms of banking capital, there is a net increase. Now, rupee debt service. So guys, whenever we take loan as a country and then we make the repayment of the loan plus interest rate in rupee, That is called rupee debt service. Debt service means when you take loan from somebody, you repay the loan plus interest rate. That is called debt service. When you do that in rupee, that is called rupee debt service. So rupee debt service has reduced. And now we have the final category called as other capital. So guys, suppose I am the exporter of this pen. I exported this pen last year to USA, but I am getting a delayed payment for this pen this year. So that becomes a part of other capital. Similarly, guys, when RBI purchases gold, that becomes a part of other capital. Data regarding other capital has not been precisely given in the economic survey, so I am not putting an arrow here whether it increased or decreased because precise figures are not given. It might be possible that there was a negligible change there and it was not very significant. That is why it has not been mentioned in the survey. Now, if we look at all these entries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So initially, after COVID, all these 5 things taken together was very good for India. India was getting a lot of FDI, FPI. But over a period of time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 taken together, its value has been coming down, which means we definitely had a surplus in the capital account, which means more money was coming to India and India was paying less to others. So there was surplus, but over a period of time, the surplus has been coming down. This is mentioned in the economic survey. So balance of payment comprises of current account and capital account. In current account, we have just seen that there is a deficit. In capital account, there is a surplus, but surplus is coming down. So if we add this and this, we see that this one, current account, is so much in deficit that capital account surplus is not able to compensate this. So when we add them, see what is the result? Balance of payment is equal to current account balance plus capital account balance. When we add them, we see that deficit has increased, surplus is coming down. Overall, there is deficit. Now guys, having seen the balance of payments, let us examine 2 important things related to balance of payments in particular. The first is called foreign investment. See, this is foreign investment. And the second is forex reserves. Now, foreign investment is of 2 types. First is called as foreign direct investment. So guys, whenever a foreign investor invests in India, both in terms of money, capital, as well as brings new technology, etc., that is called foreign direct investment. And foreign portfolio investment means when the investor invests in India only to make profit. They are not interested in ownership of any company in India. That is called foreign portfolio investment. So if you look at foreign direct investment in India, let us see the trend. See, the foreign direct investment in India, it increased during COVID and then it started to come down, increased, came down, increased, and then again it has started to come down. This reduction in foreign direct investment is because of global uncertainty that has happened because of Russia-Ukraine war, plus also because of slowdown in the global economy. Now, if you look at foreign portfolio investment, we can clearly see that during COVID it was increasing. India was looked at as a good destination for investment, but then it came down and then it crashed. It started to crash. And then it started to pick up, and then it reached 6.9%, and again it is coming down because of global uncertainty and also because USA increased the interest rate. That is why the dollars went away. If you look at foreign direct investment, guys, this one, foreign direct investment, which are the top sectors in which we are getting more money in terms of foreign direct investment? Computers, hardware and software, services and trade. In these 3 particular sectors, we are getting a lot of FDI. Which are those countries which are investing a lot of money in India? So the investors in India, so the top investor is Singapore, 37% investment, Mauritius, UAE and USA. These are the top investors in India. So guys, let us have a look at the amount of forex reserves that India has and whether it is sufficient or not. So you see, our forex reserves increased a lot, then it came down, and then it started to pick up. But even the pickup is not that great because the amount of money that we had as forex reserves was very high in this phase of COVID, when a lot of FPI, FDI was coming to India. But it has come down. Why? Russia-Ukraine war, inflation and global slowdown. Because of that, the forex reserves that we have in India has also started to come down. And you remember that USA increased the interest rate, so a lot of money from India, a lot of dollars from India went away. But if we compare 2019, which is pre-COVID, and 2022, we clearly see that the amount of forex reserves that we have is decent enough. That brings us to a question that why do we need forex reserves? I'll give you some answers. So for example, suppose guys that you want $1 Today you go in the market and you pay 70 rupees, you will get $1. Using $1, you will import, let's say, some medicine from USA. But tomorrow when we go in the market asks us to pay 80 rupees for $1. Even that is tolerable. But suppose one day you go in the market and market says, pay 500 rupees for $1. And why do we need $1? Because we have to import some medicine. Now, is it stable? No, it's not stable. Why? It's very volatile. Some days you have to pay 70 rupees for $1, some days 80 rupees, some days 500 rupees. We don't want this kind of situation. We want a stability in the market so that when we have to exchange rupee and dollar, it should not be too volatile. To maintain this stability, we also need to maintain forex reserves so that we can also have some dollars if we require it. Second is, you remember the situation where USA increased the interest rate, entire dollar went away from India. Those investors who had invested money, entire money went back. So to prevent these kind of situation also, we need to have something in stock. So why do we need dollars? Why do we need forex? We need forex to maintain stability and to maintain cushion in the time of crisis. Also, why do we need to have some dollars? So guys, suppose that India wants to import some important medicine, some important machines. How will you make the payment for that? Suppose the price of the machine is expressed in dollars. So we have to make the payment in dollars. We have to make the payment in foreign currency. That is why the Reserve Bank of India or central bank would maintain forex reserves, so as to have liquidity, so that when you want to purchase something, import something, you should have something in hand. That brings us to the question that how much forex reserve is ideal for a country? How much forex reserve should we have? Now, if I store too much money in my hand, that means that I am not putting my money somewhere where I could have invested the money and got some returns. So everything has two sides. If you keep too much of money in your hand, it's good. It makes you feel strong. But then if you keep too much money in your hand, it also means that you are not investing your money and not increasing your income. So in this context, how much forex reserve is good for a country? So guys, imagine that you love chocolates, right? So suppose I give you 1 packet of chocolate. You will of course enjoy the taste. I give you 2 packets, you will love it. 3 packets, you will love it. But if I give you 50 packets of chocolate, you consume it, and then I give you the 51st packet of chocolate, will you like its taste? No. You will feel pukish, you won't like it. This is called diminishing return. When there is too much of something, its value starts to come down. So too much of forex reserve can also make it meaningless. Second, if a central bank holds too much of forex reserves, then we are not using that forex reserve for productive purposes. Instead of putting too much of money in the Reserve Bank of India, we could use that currency, foreign currency, to improve our infrastructure. And the third is valuation loss. So suppose, for example, that Reserve Bank of India has kept a lot of dollars, euro, gold as forex reserve. But the value of gold comes down, dollar comes down, euro comes down. So in total, quantity is same, but the value is less. This is called valuation loss. So if we hold too much of foreign currency, forex reserves, and if valuation loss happens, that is also a loss for us. These are the costs. So looking at these things, the question then arises that how much is the ideal quantity or volume of forex reserve for a country? There are 2 standard answers. One is that people say that a country should have that much of forex reserves, which can help the country to have import cover of 3 months, which means we should have that much of forex reserves with RBI so that if we want to import for 3 months, we can. There should be no problem in that. But there is no empirical evidence of this 3-month formula. This is only theoretical. IMF has a different formula. IMF says that a country takes 2 types of loans. So suppose we talk about the debt of India. India has 2 types of loan. Either we take loan for more than 1 year called as long-term loan, which we can return slowly. Or India can take loan for short term, which means in less than 1 year, we have to return our loan. So IMF says that a country should have that much of forex reserves, which can help us to return our short-term loan. 100% short-term loan should be returned, which means our forex reserve should be equal to our short-term loan. This is also one of the formulas of IMF. But whatever quantity of forex reserves we have, we should always look at the cost of having too much versus the cost of having the required amount. So guys, now let us look at the exchange rate movement in India. But before we look at the exchange rate movement, let me explain to you what is the meaning of exchange rate. So suppose you go in the international market and you want to buy $1. How much rupee will you pay for it? There are two ways in which we can find this answer, which means there are two ways of finding the exchange rate. The first type of exchange rate is called fixed exchange rate. So suppose the Reserve Bank of India has decided that 20 rupees will be equal to $1. Suppose it has been fixed by the Reserve Bank of India. So if we go to international market and if we are trying to buy $1, we will give 20 rupees, which is every time you need $1, you will give 20 rupees. That is fixed exchange rate. There is another type of exchange rate called as floating exchange rate or market exchange rate. What is that? Now suppose guys that I have $1 in my hand. Imagine that this is $1. If you want this dollar, I will take 80 rupees from you. Now tomorrow, suppose dollar becomes very precious and there is shortage of dollar. Everybody says I want dollar. Which means if there is shortage of dollar, dollar is valued more. So now when you come to me, I will say that since everybody is demanding dollar, its value has increased. Now I will not give you this dollar for 80 rupees. Now I will give you this dollar for 100 rupees. So now the exchange rate has changed. We started with $1 is equal to 80 rupees. Now it became $1 is equal to 100 rupees. This is called market exchange rate or floating exchange rate. Why? Because the exchange rate between two currencies is determined by the forces of demand and supply in the market. So there are these two broader type of exchange rates. Which exchange rate system is followed by India? India follows market or floating exchange rate, but in a different way. What does India say? The Reserve Bank of India says that we will never interfere in the market. If $1 is equal to 80 rupees, we will let it happen. If $1 is equal to 70 rupees, we will also let that happen. We will not interfere. But if $1 is equal to more than, for example, 85 rupees, like $1 becomes 86 rupees, then Reserve Bank of India says, then I will interfere and I will bring it closer to $1 is equal to 85. So if $1 becomes more than 85 rupees, Reserve Bank of India will interfere. If $1 becomes less than 70 rupees, Reserve Bank of India will interfere, which means there is a range in which Reserve Bank will not interfere. That will be market exchange rate. But beyond this range, Reserve Bank interferes. That is why India's exchange rate system is called as managed floating exchange rate or dirty floating, which means we are following market exchange rate only. But whenever RBI interferes, that is called dirty floating. So this is fixed exchange rate system. $1 is equal to 20 rupees. This is floating exchange rate system determined by demand and supply. But when RBI intervenes and makes changes, that is called dirty floating. We take two scenarios. In scenario one, let us imagine that this is the circle of dollar. In this circle, there are dollars. And in this circle, there is rupee. In this situation, the exchange rate between dollar and rupee supposes $1 is equal to 80 rupees. This is our initial situation. So exchange rate based on market demand and supply is $1 is equal to 80 rupees. Now suppose in USA the rate of interest increases. So what will happen from India? All the dollars will go away and rupee will stay in the economy. So see what has happened. So dollar circle has become smaller. If you carefully see, we will see that dollar circle has become smaller and rupee is as it is. So now since dollar has reduced, its value has gone up. I told you whenever supply of something is down, its value goes up. There is appreciation in dollars and there is depreciation in rupee. Whenever there is depreciation in the rupee, what happens? Export becomes cheaper. So our exports might increase and import becomes costly. So this is the situation that we observed when the interest rate in US increased. And there was an allegation against India that India's rupee has become weaker. Economic survey argues that India's rupee has not become weaker in that sense, that here rupee has not become weaker, but here dollar has become stronger because dollar went away from India. So in relative sense, rupee became weaker, but it was not our mistake. And then economic survey says that if we examine other currencies of the world also, we will see that dollar has become stronger compared to other currencies of the world also. How? So economic survey says that do one thing, take dollar in one hand and in the other hand, economic survey says, take a box. In this box, put euro, put Swiss currency, Put French currency, put Japanese currency, put Canadian currency, and put UK currency. Put 6 currencies in this box. So in one hand you have this box, in the other hand, suppose you are keeping dollars. So initially, if you wanted to buy this basket of currency, you needed this much of dollar. But now dollar became precious. So using less amount of dollar also you can buy the same basket, which means the value of dollar has increased against all these 6 currencies. This is called as dollar index. So economic survey argues that the value of dollar has not just increased compared to rupee, but the value of dollar has also increased compared to other currencies, major currencies of the world, basket of 6 currencies. This is how economic survey has defended rupee. Let us look at 2 more things which the economic survey has argued. The first one is called as nominal effective exchange rate, NER, and second is real effective exchange rate, RER. So guys, we know that India trades with lot of countries in the world. So what we can do is we can put rupee in one hand and we can take a box like this, for example like this. In this box, we can put the currency of 6 countries with which India trades a lot. So in one hand, we are putting a box of 6 currencies, in the other hand, we are putting rupee. Now if we ask a question that how much rupee is required to get a box of 6 currencies like this, this concept is called as NER, nominal effective exchange rate. If the value of NER goes down, then we will say that there is depreciation in rupee. And whenever there is depreciation in rupee, there is a chance that our export will rise. But when we did this comparison between rupee and this box of 6 currency, another question could be that but India trades with more than 6 countries. So if we take a box and then we put 40 currencies inside it, 40 different currencies. Why 40? Because these are the 40 countries with which we trade a lot. And then we take rupee in one hand, we take a box of 40 currencies and we ask a question, how much rupee is required to get this box? And if that value goes down, that means the value of our rupee has depreciated. So when we make a comparison of the value of rupee compared to 6 currencies with which we trade a lot, or we make a comparison between rupee and a box full of 40 currencies with which we trade a lot, this comparison is called as nominal effective exchange rate. And whenever it goes down, depreciation of rupee happens. But guys, when we made this comparison between rupee and this basket of 6 currencies, imagine that there is inflation in India. Because of inflation, the value of rupee is low. And suppose there is no inflation in this basket of 6 currencies. In these countries, no inflation, but in India, there is inflation. So if we compare a country where there is inflation and with a country where there is no inflation, this comparison is not real. So what we have to do is we have to remove the effect of inflation from this rupee, and we also have to remove the effect of inflation from this basket. So when we remove the effect of inflation from a currency like rupee here and currency of this 6 basket, so when we remove the effect of inflation, then it is not called NER, then it is called RER, real effective exchange rate. Similarly, when we remove the effect of inflation from this basket of 40 currencies, remove inflation, minus inflation, and then we make a comparison between rupee and this basket of 40 currencies, that concept is called RER. And whenever RER also comes down, depreciation of rupee will happen. Over a period of time, both NER and RER has come down. See, if we compare rupee with a basket of 6 currency, both RER and NER has come down. If we compare rupee with a basket of 40 currencies, RER and NER has come down. And since it has come down, that means rupee has depreciated. So now we are going to examine the different steps taken by Government of India to improve India's export. We can divide the steps taken by Government of India into 3 categories. First is the schemes launched by Government of India to promote export. The Government of India has been signing a lot of trade agreements to promote our export. So we are going to study that as well. And in terms of new trade agreements, we will do 2 case studies. One is India UAE and second is India Australia. Now there is third step taken by Government of India to promote export, that is called trade settlement in rupee. So we are going to look at these three. Now if we see what government has done in terms of exports in agriculture, the government has been giving the certification which is required to export agricultural commodities online. So when you give certificate online, it saves a lot of time. Similarly, the Government of India has been giving financial assistance to those exporters who want to export Indian agricultural commodities across the world. For example, the saffron of Jammu and Kashmir, the Government of India has taken a lot of steps to promote that across the global market. So what is the net effect of all this? In the year 2021-22 and 22-23, in both these years, we have seen that the export of agriculture has increased. Guys, imagine that you are the manufacturer of a commodity. Suppose you manufacture laptops. Now, when you manufacture laptop, you would require a lot of inputs, raw materials. To buy the raw material, suppose you want a bank loan. You are an exporter, huh? So you are a manufacturer as well as exporter, and you need a bank loan. When you go to the bank tells you that the rate of interest over the loan is 10%. 10% is very high. So that will demotivate you. So the Government of India has started a scheme whereby if you are a manufacturer exporter, which means you are manufacturing things for export purposes, and you are MSME, you can go to a bank and take a bank loan at reduced rate of interest. So the interest rate subsidy that will be offered to you is 3% if you are MSME manufacturer exporter, and if you are exporter but you are not MSME but you are a manufacturer and exporter, then in that case you will get interest subsidy of 2%, which means if the market rate of interest is 10%, you will get the bank loan at 7%. 10 minus 3, 7. Export credit guarantee scheme. Now again, let us take the same example. So suppose you are the manufacturer of laptops in India. So that's you. Now suppose you have taken a bank loan to produce the laptop in India, to buy different inputs. If you are the exporter of laptop, you will export it to somebody outside India. That person is supposed to make payments to you. When you receive your payment, you will return the bank loan also. But suppose that you export the laptop to a foreigner in USA, and that person who bought the laptop is not able to return your cash. Now you will not be able to return the money of the bank. This would lead to a crisis kind of situation. So we have started a scheme in India for these kind of exporters to give insurance to them, that if they are unable to get their payment for exported commodities, then through insurance some kind of benefits are given to them. Similarly, when banks give loan to these exporters, and if these exporters are unable to return the money, then that amount is insured. So we provide insurance to both exporter, so that if he suffers a loss, we can compensate, and we also provide insurance to the bank under this scheme. Now we have another scheme called as Krishi Udan scheme. So guys, let me give you one example from India. So if you go to the east and northeast of India, they are very good in production of horticulture. Those horticulture crops have a great demand across the world. So the Government of India has been giving a lot of support to different airlines in India so that our airlines can take those horticulture products, fruits, vegetable, or different agricultural crops and export it to other countries. We provide benefits to those airlines under a scheme called as Krishi Udan scheme. Now there is one more scheme called as Trade Infrastructure for Export scheme. So our Government of India has created a scheme whereby the government is providing grants to central and state agencies who are trying to promote infrastructure construction for export. So guys, for example, if we want to increase exports out of India, we need godowns, warehouses, we need solid logistics, packaging, etc. So if center and state agencies are involved in improving infrastructure for export, then Government of India is providing them grants. Let me explain this this step by Government of India called as District as Export Hub. So guys, you have taken a picture. This picture is from a region in Bihar called as Darbhanga region. Darbhanga region is very famous for makhanas or foxnuts. So you see what happens is that these people who are the growers of foxnuts, they sell foxnuts for 300, 400 rupees a kg in the local market. But when the same foxnut, if it is processed properly, if it is packaged nicely according to international standards, if you export these foxnuts, you will not get 300 rupees a kg. You might end up getting 1000 rupees a kg if processed properly. So the Government of India is going to each district of India and finding out what is the unique product in that district. After finding the unique product, the government of India provides financial assistance to these producers, traditional producers, local producers, so that they can increase the production and they can do basic processing, they can do packaging, branding, marketing, and then we export those commodities out of India so that we can create a great brand outside India, and it will also benefit these producers. This concept is called as vocal for local. And what are the different commodities in which we have launched this scheme? One district, one product. So different commodities that we are trying to promote is agricultural commodity, marine, textile, pharmaceutical, chemical, engineering product, etc. Now there is one more scheme by Government of India called as remission of duties and taxes on exported products, RODTEP scheme. I'll give you an example. Now suppose guys, there is a manufacturer who manufactures laptop in USA. Now when they manufacture the laptop, they create a factory, they use transportation services, they use electricity in their factory, and the government of USA provides them a lot of benefits. Their electricity charges are removed, they don't have to pay much for registration of their properties, and then they export the laptop to India. So the price of their laptop will be very low, 20,000 rupees for one laptop. But suppose our producers of laptop, those who manufacture the laptop in India, they take a factory. When you take a factory in India, you have to register it. You have to pay stamp duty, registration charges. When you run your factory, you pay electricity bill also. When you produce the laptop, you have to transport it to the seaports. So you will use vehicles on which you will use petrol and diesel. Petrol and diesel are subjected to taxes in India. So the government of India says that our producers and exporters, those producers who are exporting, they are at disadvantage because many countries across the world, they give a lot of benefits to their exporters. So government of India has said that those kind of charges which are paid by our exporters, for example, charges on petrol, electricity, stamp duty, property registration, these things will be waived off. So government of India will return a part of this money collected from our exporters so as to make our Indian goods more competitive. So that scheme is called as remission of duties and taxes on exported products. What are the different trade agreements that Government of India has signed with other countries, and what is so unique about these trade agreements? So guys, imagine that India and Bangladesh are trading with each other. When two countries trade with each other, what are the things that they exchange? So India can send goods to Bangladesh, India can send services like software, or India can also open an automobile factory in Bangladesh. That is called investment. Similarly, Bangladesh can send us air conditioners, Bangladesh can send us software services, Bangladesh can also do investment in India. What is happening between India and Bangladesh is that whenever we send any goods to them, like for example, suppose we are sending a laptop to them, the price of the laptop is, let's say, 100 rupees. So when that laptop reaches Bangladesh, Bangladesh puts a tariff of 30%. So the price of our laptop becomes 130 rupees because 30% tariff. Similarly, when Bangladesh sends something to us, so let's say that they are sending refrigerator to us, the price of the refrigerator is 100 rupees. When that refrigerator reaches India, we put a tariff of 40%. So the price of Bangladeshi refrigerator in India becomes 140 rupees. Since the price of Indian laptop is increasing in Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi citizens don't prefer Indian laptops. They would buy a Chinese laptop, which is more cheaper. Similarly, when Bangladeshi refrigerator reaches India, Indians don't prefer to buy it. We will also buy the refrigerator by Samsung, which is Korean. So India and Bangladesh told each other that why to do these kind of activities, why to create problems with each other, let us sign a trade agreement to cooperate. So what are the three basic forms of trade agreement? The first trade agreement is called preferential trade agreement. What is preferential trade agreement? So for example, India will tell Bangladesh that Bangladesh, whenever we export goods to you, like laptops, you please reduce the tariff from 30% to maybe 10%. Similarly, Bangladesh will tell India that, okay, whenever Bangladesh exports refrigerator to India, India should also reduce the tariff to 10%. So when two countries decide to reduce the tariff mutually, whenever they exchange goods, that agreement is called as preferential trade agreement. But preferential trade agreement is a very basic form of trade agreement. We can write a better trade agreement because in preferential trade agreement, the agreement was only discussed about exchange of goods. But two countries exchange services also. So for example, if India tell Bangladesh that if India is exporting goods and services to Bangladesh, Bangladesh should not put any tariff, completely remove. Similarly, when Bangladesh exports goods and services to us, we will not impose any tariff. This type of agreement, which is reached between two countries related to both goods and services, where we eliminate the tariff, is called as free trade agreement. But we can write even a more stronger and better agreement than free trade agreement. What is the name of even a more stronger agreement than that? Comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So for example, if India is sending goods, services and foreign direct investment to Bangladesh, suppose Bangladesh is not putting any restriction. Similarly, when Bangladesh gives us goods, services and investment and we don't put any restriction, that type of agreement is called as comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So guys, India has roughly signed 13 agreements which are in the nature of preferential trade agreement, and we have roughly signed 6 agreements which are in the nature of these two. Now, as a case study, because it is given in the economic survey, so we are going to do 2 examples, India and UAE agreement and India and Australia agreement, and let us see what happened there. So India and UAE, they signed comprehensive economic partnership agreement in 2022. What did they mention in the agreement? So India and UAE, they agreed that they are going to exchange goods with each other, and when they exchange goods, they will not put any tariff over those items over which they have agreed. Similarly, they are going to exchange services and they have decided to remove the tariff over those selected services. Similarly, India and UAE have agreed that during trade, they are going to maintain all the records and all the data in the digital form, that is digital trade. Similarly, India made a request to UAE. India told UAE to open up its market for Indian pharmaceutical industry. So guys, India is one of the largest manufacturers and exporters of medicine, vaccines and medical equipments in the world. So India requested UAE that UAE should accept all the Indian medicines, medical equipments, etc. subject to quality control across entire country. They should not put restrictions on Indian pharmaceutical, and UAE agreed to it. In return, UAE also put a demand to the government of India. What is the extra demand that they put? And that demand has been included in the trade deal. That demand is related to government procurement. What is the demand? So guys, many a times we have seen that the government of India, they construct bridges, they construct buildings, etc. So imagine that the government of India is constructing a building. To construct the building, the government of India needs to buy steel. Now, suppose the government of India has to buy steel whose value is up to 200 crore. So either 200 crore or less than 200 crore. The rule in India is that whenever government of India purchases any item for its use whose value is up to 200 crore, that is called government procurement. It is compulsory that the government of India has to buy it from Indian MSME. If it is not available with MSME, then the government of India can buy it from other industries. But preference has to be given to MSMEs. Similarly, when the government of India purchases something whose value is more than 200 crore, the rule is that government of India has to give preference to large Indian industries first. And if it is not available by the large Indian industries, then the government of India can import those items. UAE made a request to government of India. UAE said that government of India, we will not disturb your MSME policy. It is good that you are promoting your micro, small and medium industries. But UAE told government of India that whenever government of India purchases anything whose value is more than 200 crore, then government of India should invite both Indian companies and UAE companies and treat them equally. Whosoever gives government of India good quality product at low price, the government of India should buy it from them. Which means UAE made a request to government of India that when we are buying worth more than 200 crores, the government should treat Indian companies, big companies and UAE companies at the same level. Whosoever provides the government of India goods at lower price and good quality, government should prefer that. So that has been included in the trade deal. So this shows the growing bond between India and UAE, isn't it? Similarly, guys, India and Australia, they also wanted to sign this agreement. India and Australia wanted to sign CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, but they could not agree. Why? Because Australia has been telling India that Australia wants to sell or export its low-priced agricultural items in India. But India is skeptical about it. India says that if you export unlimited amount of agricultural commodities to India at low prices, our farmers will not be able to compete. So India is not agreeing to open up its market completely. Similarly, India has been requesting Australia that Australia should give more visa to Indians and those visa restrictions should be removed. Australia is not agreeing to that. So there has been a deadlock. So as an interim arrangement, India and Australia said that in future they will sign CEPA, but currently they have agreed to sign, which they have actually, called as India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, ECTA. This has already been signed in 2022. It is an interim arrangement before both the countries could sign proper comprehensive economic partnership agreement. In this agreement, Australia has also agreed to provide extended visa to Indian students. So this type of interim arrangement is there, but hopefully our Prime Minister has also said during the G20 meeting recently that India and Australia are very close to convert this into CEPA. So guys, in the month of July 2022, Reserve Bank of India passed a circular in which Reserve Bank of India talked about settlement of trade in rupee. Currently, there are almost 50 countries with which we are in advanced talks related to settlement of trade in rupee. So before I explain to you what is the meaning of trade settlement in rupee, let me give you a real life scenario of what actually happened, which motivated India to pursue trade settlement even more aggressively. You know, money has a very nice habit. Whenever interest rate rises in a particular country, the money and the currency goes in that country. So I'll give you an example. Suppose if you put your money in State Bank of India, in a savings account, they will provide you 3% rate of interest. But suppose if HDFC Bank starts to provide you 6% rate of interest when you deposit your cash, where will you put your cash? SBI, SDFC, SDFC. So money always follows that country where interest rate is high. So what happened is in USA, the government of USA started to increase the interest rate. The US central bank, they increased the interest rate in US. When the interest rate increased, in comparison to India, Brazil, China, the interest rate in US was higher. So all the dollar from Brazil, China, rest of the world, including India, it started to go to USA because dollar will follow that country where interest rate is rising. So now initially, suppose this circle is the circle of dollar in India, this circle is the circle of rupee in India. There was a balance. But when the dollar started to fly away from India and from other countries, what happened? This balance was distorted. Now see, what is the size of dollar circle? It has squeezed, it has come down. And what is the size of rupee? Same. And you very well know that whenever there is excess supply of something, its value comes down. I'll give you an example. If you meet your best friend every day, so initially it all looks very nice. But if you keep meeting your best friend every day, one day your best friend will say that you have come again. Your value will reduce. I'm just kidding. So similarly, since the availability of dollar is low and the availability of rupee is same, so in comparison to dollar, the value of rupee has come down, depreciated, see. And when the value of rupee depreciates, imports become costly and exports become cheaper. But since there is global slowdown, even if our export becomes cheaper, we won't be able to increase our export because the world is not ready to buy it. But when depreciation of rupee happened, import became costly. And what are we importing? We are importing oil, crude oil, we are importing gold, we are importing big machines. These are the imports which we cannot reduce all of a sudden. So our import has become costly and the nature of our import is such that we cannot reduce it, which means now we are importing costly items. So when USA increased its interest rate, inflation in India increased, depreciation happened, and we have been importing costly items. So current account deficit also happened. Why did it all happen? It all happened because there is over dependence or extra dependence on dollars. Government of India was trying to get dollars, but from where are we going to get dollars? Because all the dollars is going to USA. This type of situation needs to be controlled. Can we eliminate this type of situation, crisis-like situation? No. Can we control it? Yes. How can we control it? By reducing our dependence on rupee. This is one of the motivations that the government of India had when we made a plan that we should reduce our dependence on rupee. The second motivation is that, there is Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because of that conflict, a lot of sanctions have been imposed over Russia. That, Russia cannot accumulate dollars, nobody will buy anything from Russia. So a lot of restrictions, economic restrictions are there on Russia. India buys a lot of oil from Russia. So India told Russia that, don't worry, even if you have restrictions that you cannot deal in dollars, So what we will do is, India happily told Russia that we are ready to buy your oil, but we will make the payment in rupee. Now, to make this arrangement possible, what India proposed is, India told Russia, so now guys, imagine that this is Russia, this is India. Now what India proposed to Russia is, India told Russia that India is ready to import oil from Russia. See, we are importing the oil. Now we need to make the payment. And we told Russia that we will make the payment in rupee. So what did we say? We told Russia that one of the Russian banks should open its account in an Indian bank. So when a bank of a country opens an account in the bank of another country, that account is called as Vostro account. So suppose Bank of Russia opens an account with the State Bank of India, that is called Vostro account. So India said that we are going to import oil from Russia, but we will make the payment in rupee by depositing the rupee in the Vostro account. Similarly, India told Russia that India is ready to export items to Russia. So we are exporting the items to Russia also. When we export the items, Russia has to make payments to us. And we are telling Russia that you should make the payment in rupee. How will Russia make payment in rupee? Remember, when we bought the oil, we made the payment in rupee in the Vostro account. So from this account only, Russia can make the payment to us in rupee. This type of arrangement is called as trade settlement in rupee. And currently, many countries in our neighborhood have agreed to have trade settlement in rupee with us, and almost 50 countries, 50 countries across the world as we speak, are in advanced negotiations with India for trade settlement in rupee. Why is it beneficial? Trade settlement of rupee is beneficial because it reduces our dependence on dollars. And I told you, if you depend too much on dollars, this situation can happen. Second, it makes us less prone to external shock. All of a sudden, if USA pulls all its dollars, it will affect us less. Third, it reduces the risk for Indian businesses. So for example, guys, if we trade in our currency, there is no headache of converting rupee into dollar, dollar into rupee. So that risk of conversion is gone. That is also beneficial. Plus, it will also help us to project rupee as international currency. So these are the advantages that will happen through trade settlement in rupee. So there are two indicators which give us a very good idea about India's external sector and how we are performing there. These two indicators are International Investment Position, IIP, and second is India's external debt. What is IIP? Now imagine, guys, that you go to a foreign country and you buy the bond of a foreign company. So you go to USA and you buy the bond of Microsoft. When you buy a bond, you will give cash to Microsoft, and in return, Microsoft will start to give you interest income. And after 1 or 2 years, Microsoft will return your cash. So whenever we buy a financial asset in other countries, our income increases. Similarly, foreigners also come to India and they also buy bonds of our companies. When they buy the bond, we have to give them interest income. We have to return their money later on also. So what is ideal scenario for us? Ideal scenario for us is that what we buy in foreign country should be more and what foreigners are buying in our country should be less. Which means our assets should be more, our liabilities should be less. Economic survey tells us that the position of asset and liability of India is not that great. So for example, if we have to return 100 rupees of foreigners, according to economic survey, Indians will only get 68.5 rupees from the world. So our assets is 68.5, our liability is 100 rupees. So there is a mismatch, which means our asset is less, our liability is more. Similarly, when we hold gold as reserves, that is also our asset. So if you take all the assets of India, the position of asset is this and the liability is this, which means you have to return more to the world and we will get less from the world. This is called as international investment position, asset minus liability. What is the asset? So whatever financial assets we buy, the Indians buy across the world, and the gold reserves that we have, that is the asset and this is the liability. So the position of our asset and liability, see here, is 68.5. What is the meaning of 68.5? If you look carefully, the meaning of asset to liability ratio 68.5 is asset to liability 68.5, which means our assets, if it is rupees 68.5, our liabilities is 100. So our assets are low. So guys, now we are going to look at the external vulnerability indicator of India. This is very crucial and it is expected that these kind of questions can be asked in UPSC. Now, for example, if you look at the external debt of India, you see in 2021, it was $573.6 billion. Now it has become $610 billion. So in absolute term, our debt has increased. Debt means loan, which we have to return to others. It has increased. But if you look at external debt to GDP ratio, we will clearly see that external debt to GDP ratio has come down, which is a healthy sign, which means our GDP has increased and hence the debt that we have looks little smaller. Next ratio is debt service ratio. So now guys, imagine that by exporting items out of India, we are earning 100 rupees. Out of 100 rupees, how much is the money that we have to pay to others? Because we take loan also as a country. So when you take loan from somebody, you have to return the money plus some interest. That is called debt service. Debt service means returning the principal and interest. So if our export earning is 100 rupees, out of 100 rupees, how much do we have to return to others in the form of principal plus interest? Earlier it was 8.2, now it is 5%. So it is an improvement. Now let us look at forex reserve to total debt. Now guys, imagine that we have taken 100 rupees from somebody and our forex reserve is also 100 rupee. So it's a balanced situation. But suppose that we have taken 100 rupees from somebody which we have to return, but our forex reserve is only 87.3. How are we going to return the money of others? So that can become a challenge, which means this ratio has deteriorated in India. Now there is this next ratio called as concessional debt to total debt. So guys, whenever we take a loan from somebody, so suppose we take 100 rupees loan. Out of 100 rupees loan, sometimes the people who are giving us money, they will say that, okay, out of this 100 rupees, 80 rupees is normal, but that 20 rupees which is there here, on that 20 rupees, we don't have to pay high rate of interest, concession is given. Or whosoever has given us 100 rupees, they will say that we have to return the 80 rupees fast, but the 20 rupee component of this can be returned after a long time also. Some concession is given. So whenever we take money from somebody, a part of the money can be given to us using strict condition, but other part can also be given to us at concessional rates, concessional conditions. So what is the percentage of concessional debt that we have compared to our total debt? So from 9%, it has become 7.7%, which is good. Now, let us look at short-term debt to total debt. So guys, whenever we take money from somebody, we can take the money for 2 time periods. One, you take the money from somebody for more than 1 year. That is called long-term debt. That is good because the person will not come to us and say, hey, return my money quickly. Long-term debt is good. But short-term debt is when you take the money from somebody for less than 1 year. That's very dangerous because you might have to return it very quickly. So let us see what is the percentage of short-term debt to total debt. So initially it was 17.6% in 2021. Up to September 2022, it is 21.6%. So it has increased. Not a great sign. In the economic survey currently, they have given the data for 2021, but they have not given the data for entire 2022. They have compared 2021 up to only September 2022. Ideally, this comparison is not good because we are taking whole year 2021, but here we are taking only till September 2022. Means October, November, December is not covered here. But this is how the economic survey has reported the data, so we will also go with it. Now, let us look at this part. So guys, whatever total debt we have, how much debt do we have to return? Which means we have a total loan of 100 rupees. Out of 100 rupees, how much loan we have to return in rupee terms? So 55.5. And how much loan we have to return in dollar terms? 30. Which means the money that we have to return in rupee is more, which is good sign, right? And next one is sovereign debt. Sovereign debt means the debt taken by government of India. So out of our total debt, sovereign debt has come down. Non-sovereign debt means, for example, non-government kind of organizations in India who have taken money from rest of the world, that is higher, but the government debt is low, which is a good sign. So this concludes our chapter number 10 and 11 from Economic Survey. Thank you so much and see you very soon with the next lecture.